see here. Okay, so go ahead and all right, so we'll have just a real quick agenda here. Again, this is RPA, Robotic Process Automation and Process Management. We're going to go through a few short slides here, and then we're going to jump over to our partners at Nintex, who are going to demonstrate the capabilities of the Nintex product stack for us. And then we'll jump back into presentation mode and we'll take any questions. So welcome everyone. Again, we'll go ahead and introduce our two companies. We'll walk briefly through the Nintex process stack. As I said, we'll do a demonstration. We'll highlight a little bit further the benefits of robotic process automation with Nintex, and then we'll take any questions at the end. And if you have any questions during the presentation, just go ahead and drop them in the chat, and I'll try and catch them as we're going along. So if you think about Tactegra, Tactegra's been around since 2008. We're headquartered in Concord, North Carolina since 2014, and we serve clients across the Charlotte region and really across the United States. We've had over 100 clients in all industries, and we have Fortune 50 to really small client experience as well. And when if you know our story, you know, we started out doing primarily continuous improvement in Six Sigma. And, you know, so we've always been in the process space really our entire careers. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, we really started getting into a broader spectrum of management consulting offerings. If you think about, you know, why our clients choose us, we have really long-term results. We have a dynamic staff, and we tend to match our consultants really well with our clients. And we really measure our success by the success of our clients. We have a lot of client recognition, including being recognized among 22,000 vendors at the post office for being the most innovative vendor. And then we decided as part of our service offerings that we would go ahead we really decided that we wanted to do robotic process automation. As I mentioned, all of us have been doing process work for our entire careers. And we realized that the money truly is in how do you monetize your process or make it more efficient and effective by automating it. And we wanted to partner with a partner who had full capabilities across the entire, you know, there's different RPA tools and there's different process mapping tools. And we really like the Nintex product stack. Again, we have Nintex was founded in Australia in 2006. They're headquartered in Bellevue since 2013. They have over 500 employees all over the world in 12 different offices. And they have a net promoter score of over 70%. Also some you know, key things. They have billions of process executions annually, more than 8,000 customers worldwide in 90 different countries. And, you know, we really believe the things that you see here, it's really the fastest way to build the apps, low TCO and highest overall satisfaction. So again, when you think of these process tools, they range from being very complex to being very simple. And what we really find is that, you know, the Nintex sweet spot is really somewhere right in the middle. It's very easy to build different processes and automate the bots, which we'll talk in more detail about. And really, that's where the power lies, is really in that sweet spot. So, you know, when you think about it, you know, you get into this mode where if you know, past RPA work that I've done, you know, they say, well, it's codeless development. And then you start working on it and you really need somebody who's truly an engineer or a developer. And then there are some that are just so simple, they're really like basic task managers. So again, you know, these tools that Nintex has really provide the ability to develop and build your automated processes in a relatively simple way. So another thing that we're really excited about is when you think about the work that gets done around in the process space, we start out with, you know, we manage the process and then we want to automate it. And then ultimately, once it's automated, we want to be able to optimize it. And really, it's if you can see the arrows there, it's really a cycle. So Nintex, again, provides the tool with ProMap to do the planning and the mapping of the processes, sharing across the enterprise. And then it has the automation tools with workflow and RPA to really automate those processes. It has forms capabilities, which we'll see today, and DocGen and eSign capability as well. And then once that stuff is up and running, it can all be pulled together. We've seen the capability to connect to a variety of enterprise applications across the spectrum. So this is really the way we think of when we think of whether it's Six Sigma and DMAIC or even just other process improvement strategies. This fits in very well. The Nintex Process Cloud fits in very well with our capability and the way that we think and do work. Again, these processes can be automated and built and documented across a variety of not only industries but functions or departments. You can see some examples here. And again, these tools are built specifically to connect to the enterprise applications. And you can see a sampling of the applications over there on the right that Nintex will be able to, and you'll see that it's very simple to connect to these things with various actions. Again, real quick sampling of the 8,000 customers, obviously a very diverse crowd here. And, we've seen this, there's some great material that we've seen as well as some of the work that Nintex has done with some of these different folks. So when you think about, as I mentioned earlier, with robotic process automation, the thing that we would get, maybe in past lives was, well, why are you guys so amped on documenting processes? Just because I have a flow chart or a Visio flow chart, it doesn't mean that I can make any money off of it. And we feel that this is really where the money can be made, and for an organization to really be able to support, whether it's a digital transformation strategy or they want to make their business more efficient. Now a lot of companies are being forced to do more with less. So we really think that if you truly understand your processes, this is really where you put the rubber to the road. And we see this now more and more, where you hear a lot of the words, but that's what Tactegra is really here to do, is help organizations implement robotic process automation as well as process management. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. I'm going to turn it over to my partner Jesse at Nintex, and he will take over for the demo perspective.
Excellent. All right. So so thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Let me go ahead and share out my screen, get that going here, so we're not just listen to me talk. Let's do that. All right. And if I could just get a quick head nod when you guys see my screen, that'd be great. Go from there. Okay. Yeah. So I want to make sure that, for any of those that are on today that may not quite understand exactly what Nintex is or what we do, Mark went through the few slides that kind of covered our entire process platform. And that is really what we focus in on, is that process piece of it, whether it's through automation or through that document management the process management, in terms of, kind of just detailing out what do we do, right? The age-old question of, well, what do we do? What's the process? Where do I go to find that? Things like that. So we do everything from that. And then, like I said, the automation, document automation, forms, mobile, e-signature, all that stuff. So when it comes to processes, what Nintex really, focuses in on and prides itself on. So I want to go through just kind of a real quick high-level overview of kind of some bullet points of at least the product stack. I know we definitely want to talk about RPA, so we'll definitely dive into that here towards the end of it, and then just kind of expand upon that even further as we go through this. So I'm going to start off with Nintex ProMap here first. This is a cloud-based application, so this can be rolled out to your organization to help kind of solidify what your processes are across the organization. Again, answering that question of, well, what do we do? What is the process? Who's involved? And things like that. Not only that, it helps collaboration and rolling out the processes and also getting adoption, right? Because now everybody can get to it. It's in a centralized location. People can provide feedback on it, things like that. And it's always up to date. Things that are in the works can be shown to those that are working on it. But for the end user that is just consuming the process, right? I need to know, how do I do something? They're just going to see what the last or the latest published version of that thing is. So some really cool things that you can do inside of ProMap. The dashboard, when we log in, it provides the users with all sorts of information that are specific to the user. Because the tool is role-based and user-based, it's going to be specific to them and what they're actually working with. Things that they've viewed recently, things that they're involved in, things that they own, and things like that. So they can very quickly jump into what is important to them. Obviously, like any other modern application, you got the good old search bar in there as well, right? So if I need to start looking at maybe some vendor onboarding, that's what we're going to go and look at today. I could just type in vendor. Maybe I don't know exactly what the process is called. Maybe I'm just kind of my first day, right? And I need to know, or I'm new to the process, I need to know what that is. I can come in here and just start searching and go into it from there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump into vendor onboarding because I need to know, how do I onboard a vendor? Now, automatically you can see, hey, there's a nice visualization of my process. I got all my swim lanes, I got all my little boxes, all the arrows are nice and neat. That's great, right? Everybody loves that, don't get me wrong. I like to do this stuff in Visio, but it drives me bananas when I have like kinks in my arrows, shapes are all different sizes, things like that, right? Well, the cool thing is with Nintex ProMap is we don't focus in on building this piece of it, right? You'll see that there's no toolbox of shapes and colors and arrows and all those other things, right? What we focus in on is, if I come in over here to this edit tab, is what is the process, right? It's a very procedural approach to that, right? Writing documentation, things like that. So it's very easy to consume and build and get off the ground running, because I'm sure that a lot of you probably have some sort of work instructions, standard operating procedures, some sort of documentation today that you leverage. Now it's just a matter of putting in a centralized location and making it a little bit more interactive. So basic 3 things to remember within this ProMap is, if I were to come in here and create a new activity, it's a matter of what are we doing? Who's responsible for that? Again, this is role-based, right? So I can assign roles to all of this. Don't think about individual users, right? It's not, you know, Joe from accounting or Susan from finance, right? It's maybe just accounts payable or HR, things like that. So it makes it much more kind of blanket approach. And then lastly, it's what are the actual steps involved? I can come in here and add as many tasks as I need to. And so those 3 things: what's the activity, who's responsible, and then what are the actual steps to perform that activity or those tasks. Now, those are very basic things, right? Those are very simple things that we could do, but adding more to it obviously is going to enrich the experience. So maybe you have existing forms today. There's no reason to rethink and rebuild everything just because now we're documenting it. That can come later, right? Process automation and streamlining and improvement, that comes over time naturally. Right now, let's just focus in on what do we do. So we can take those work instructions, we can attach them, maybe images, screenshots from from an application, right? Maybe you're training somebody new, and hey, here's screenshots of where to click, what to do, how to enter things in. You can do that. Videos. We work with some organizations that put their training videos inside of Nintex ProMap, and then when they bring on new people, they provide them with an onboarding process map of everything that they need to do, from setting up their user accounts, to signing up for payroll benefits, to watching those wonderful safety videos, the workplace safety videos that we all get to watch, once a year, right? Those are all things that you can embed inside of ProMap, and then your users know exactly what to do, where to go, and how to get that. So if I want to add one in here, I'll do that here real quick. This will be a new step, and this is going to be, the CEO is going to do that today. And, this is just going to be do something. All right, pretty straightforward, but we get the idea. Now, obviously, I added this new step. Maybe step 9, this doesn't fit there. It needs to be up here further. Well, the cool thing with a lot of things in Nintex, it's all drag and drop. So I can rearrange this any way I see fit. I can grab these individual tasks if need be and move them around. I can grab the actual entire activity if need be and rearrange that. And that comes into focus here because when I come in and save it, Obviously, what we're going to do is, well, obviously, I want to jump back to the map. I want to see what that visually looks like, right? Because our end users, that's what they're really going to care about. That's where they're going to probably spend most of their time. And you can see automatically, there's our new step, right? So I can click into this. There's all my activities to go off and do, and I have all of that. So kind of taking a step through this, we're onboarding a vendor. We need to make sure we know what the associated tasks are. So we need to update some things on our HRIS, get the vendor ID. We have to submit a form. We have a web form right there. So now I know if I'm getting ready to onboard somebody, what do I have to do? I fill out a form. Well, where is that? Boom, it's right there, right? That's a link. It could be a Nintex form. It could be something that you have in existence already. And you'll notice here then we have a decision tree, right? You see those a lot in our processes. But this one goes off to another process, a sub process. Maybe it needs approved. We've all gone through that vendor approval process where it's a new vendor we want to bring in, right? And they got to go through that approval process. Well, that's a sub process unto itself. Let's not clutter the onboarding experience because this is its own separate process. So I can expand this out right in line with everything else that I have. And now I can see everything end to end for what the entire process is. So this is really cool because now I know from one single view everything that is going on inside of my process, clicking through all of these if I need to. A few other things that I always like to call out here so everybody can see this. Feedback. I don't have any feedback in here, but if I were to provide comments, you'll see I have this little feedback button up here on the top right. People inside of your organization, even those outside of your organization, if you share this out with them, they can then provide feedback. Maybe you want to get some feedback from your vendors that you work with. Hey, what do you think about this new process that we're doing? That way there you can improve upon that. You'll see that right here in line. And obviously everything that you've changed over time. And then really the big thing that everybody likes to see is this cycle cost, right? This idea around how much money are we actually spending in this process? You'll see some of these have stars next to them because I haven't published it yet. Some of these are broken out simply because they are expanded out. There are other processes involved in here. So looking at this though, it's based on that active time, the resource we assign to it, and then that resource cost, which again, you can manage all of that inside an Nintex ProMap. And then we get that high level cost. Keep in mind, this isn't actual analytics of your process running. However, it does give you that good foundational insight into, all right, we're spending X amount of dollars. We're spending about $1,300 whenever we onboard a vendor. Why is that, right? Is that too much? Is that too low? Are we spending too much time? Not enough time? Things like that. It provides you at least some insight. And then also too, you can start looking at, well, is this a good candidate for automation, right? Can I automate the entire process, parts of this process, things like that? So when we look at it, this vendor approval, this is a great way that we can go ahead and automate this process. I could probably automate this entire thing, but for right now, let's hyper focus in on this approval process, right? The submitting of a form, and then if they're not on that approved vendor list, we have to go through an approval, right? So how do we go off and do that? Well, that's where our workflow engine comes into play. That's where that tool set can come and help us out. But real quick, what I want to do while we're here is I want to go ahead and I want to publish this because I want to showcase something here real quick. Inside an Nintex ProMap, we built in the technology to allow you to do this request automation. So once you publish a process in Nintex ProMap and you've identified it, maybe this is a good one for automation, I can come in here, click on request automation, and I can actually build a skeleton of a workflow in our Nintex Workflow Cloud toolset. So maybe it's a form and I want to create that. So now based on everything that I've already built out inside of Nintex ProMap, I can go off and actually build a workflow based on what I've just typed out here. I didn't have to do anything, right, other than just type it out. What is that process? Again, answering that age-old question of what do we do, right, and go from there. So once I have this all squared away, I can change these around if need be. These are all of our workflow actions. So maybe if generate document doesn't make sense right there, maybe I need to do something else, right, or e-signature. Absolutely, we could do that. Send an email, tasks, things of that nature. You can change that all around if need be. Then I can go ahead and hit create this. So what this does is Nintex ProMap packages this up, sends it off to Nintex Workflow Cloud and says, hey, now you have a baseline of a workflow that then all you have to do is configure. I like to refer to that as filling in the blanks, right? Understanding that you're probably going to have to build out some connections, the things that we can't do for you, right? What do you want in the email, stuff like that. So with that, I always like to transition then over into our Nintex Workflow Cloud, because that's really where we want to go. So let me go ahead and just close that one out here real quick. And if you remember, we just did that vendor onboarding one. So there it is. It's 1:22 p.m. That's my time. So you can see that that is created just now. We're going to actually look at this vendor onboarding one that I already have set up. But just real quick, if we take a look at this, what we actually get at an Nintex Pro Map is going to be a lot better off than just coming in here with a blank slate and saying, kind of figure it out yourself, right? Over time, a lot of people will get to that stage, right, where they come in with a clean canvas, they want to come in and just do it themselves. But this at least gives you a baseline. This is a great step to maybe hand a developer, an architect, to say, hey, go off and build something. Here's the kind of the baseline of what we need, your requirements, and then go and off and do that. So, update our HRIS, this is all the things that we're talking about. Are they approved? There's our task that we were looking at. The finance approval. Hey, there's that new step that we added in there with the CEO. We didn't have any actions in there, but we can certainly add some in there if need be. A legal review and all that stuff. So you can see automatically, again, we have a great baseline of what we want to go off and do. Now with Nintex Workflow Cloud, obviously, right, this is another cloud-based tool. It's built in Microsoft Azure. So it's your own tenant. We spin it up. We hand it over to you. You can leverage single sign-on if you wanted to, or you can keep your users kind of manage all inside the tenant yourself. Doesn't matter to us. It's your data. It's your tenant. You do what you want with it. We just want to help facilitate building out those processes and streamlining it. So we have this vendor onboarding demo, but rather than me kind of actually walking through the demo on this side of things and kind of filling out a form and whatnot, because I think we've all probably filled out a form a time or two, this is a great time to really kind of peel the layers back and start thinking about maybe different ways of approaching this. So in a standard approval process, right, we have tasks, we have a start form that we start off on, things like that. But, all of our actions over here on the left-hand side, they're all drag and drop. So if I needed to send an email, it's really just a matter of dragging that onto the canvas and configuring it. That's how all of our actions work. Everything from the complex things like inside of Salesforce to the simple things like sending off an email. You drag it onto the canvas and then you configure it. Just like filling out a form where you see that red asterisk, that's required things, stuff like that. So building it out is pretty straightforward, and the power is really limitless because then we have an extension framework that allows us to build on top of our platform already to connect to virtually any application that has a modern API interface, right? So we can do that through open API specifications. So you can really start to build upon this even further and go that extra mile. So instead of me filling out the form like I talked about, what I'm going to do now is really transition into what we really want to hear about today, right? Is that RPA side of things. So let's just say for whatever reason, right, in this scenario, vendor onboarding, maybe I need to onboard a ton of vendors. Maybe we're doing an acquisition, right? Maybe we're acquiring a company and I need to onboard all the vendors that that company works with, something like that. That happens. That could totally happen. So I can set up an RPA bot flow, right? A tool that helps me mimic the keystrokes and mouse clicks of a normal user. And it's just going to be a virtual user this time, right? To go through and do all the things that a normal user would do, right? Open up an Excel document, copy and paste data out of it, push it into maybe a web form or a system of record, things like that. But instead of spending 8 hours a day doing that, sitting there and copy and pasting, that's no fun, right? Train a bot to do it, right? Have that virtual worker do it. The virtual worker can run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, doesn't need a break, right? So when you kind of extrapolate that out, that cost, that goes way down, when you start looking at the bots, simply because you can have it run and do it whatever you need it to do, whenever you need it to, and it's just going to go off and do it. So again, rather than me sitting here talking, I'm just going to come down here and hit my play button. I'm going to kind of talk through it as it's actually going. Now, keep in mind, this is a live demo. I've ran this thing 3 times today. It went off without a hitch, but fourth time's a charm, right? So here we go. It's going to go through a few things. Obviously, it's resizing the screen. At this point, my hands are off the keyboard, but it's going to run through some things, open up some documents, that Excel sheets, rearranging some windows, opening up a Nintex form that we have, that vendor onboarding form. And then it's just going to loop through the data inside of Excel, right? You can see that it's grabbing data, it's moving the cells cell by cell, and it's just copying that data out and putting it into variables. Now, like any other solution, there's a million ways that you could approach this. You could grab a list from inside of RPA, massage the data however you need to. It's a great way of doing things. Or you can literally just, like it did, copy and paste the data out of Excel cell by cell, right? You could do that. And then what is it doing? Well, now it's going to the form that we have, the system or a process that we already have built, right? That form is already built, something that we use today for one-offs. But instead, now we're going to use it in bulk, right? Now we're going to have the RPA bot go off and do it based on a set of data. Again, not changing the process, just changing the interactions a little bit through RPA. So again, it's going to take all that data, pass it into it, line by line. It's going to go off and then submit the form. I have it set up to only do the one because I'm not going to sit here and kind of scroll through 100 of these, because you get the point, right? It's a matter of coming through here. And when we look at these processing vendors, it's a matter of just copying and pasting that data out, right? Very straightforward. And then sending that data out there. Now, you're probably thinking, that's great, copy and paste data, that's wonderful. Well, what else can we do with it though, right? Where else could we take this? And this is where, again, I want to make sure that we kind of focus in on, is because we have 392 actions inside of Nintex RPA. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I don't have time, and nor do you probably want to hear me talk about all of them. But the one thing, a few things actually, that I will highlight, one is, how do we interact with data? That's always a good question that I get a lot, is, well, how does RPA know what to do, right? So I can take this little target reticle, this little bullseye. Let me actually refresh this page here too while we're doing this. So I can take this little bullseye, and you can see I'm hovering over Excel, and automatically it knows, well, what cell am I hovering over? I can grab column data. I can grab row data if I need to. I can sheets, I can interact with that. Things up here in the ribbon, absolutely. Or maybe just better yet, maybe the Excel sheet is already formatted inside of a table. That happens a lot. So I just need to grab the current table. Just give me the current table. Now, again, because RPA knows enough about the application that it's interacting with, right? It scrapes through not only just at the presentation layer, but it goes into a little bit of the application code to understand what is it dealing with, right? What is it working with? And so now it knows, hey, this is Excel. What do you want to do with Excel? These are very Excel specific things, right? Searching cells, merging, things like that. Even removing duplicates, things like that. These are all things that are very Excel specific. So in this scenario, I just want to say, get the list. Just give me all the list. These are my vendors. Rather than going step by step, just give me the entire list. So I'm going to hit OK, and it's that fast. So I'm going to come in here and edit this. So rather than doing it step by step, right? You can automatically see I'm doing kind of like process improvement already on the fly. I can just grab all the data. Now I have all of that data in Excel. Now it's just in Nintex RPA. So you can start to imagine, well, what happens when I need to massage this data? Right? This zip code, prime example, this zip code, that's not 5 digits, that's 4. That's an issue, right? We need to change that, right? Maybe we need to append, a title to these, Mr., Mrs., Doctor, what have you. We can certainly go ahead and do that, because now I can target each of these cells specifically and do that data translation, the massaging of the data as need be. Some other really cool things, we can interact with Nintex Workflow Cloud, that tool that I just showed you. So that's already integrated into our product suite. So RPA can talk to Nintex Workflow Cloud, and also go the other way. Nintex Workflow Cloud can actually talk to Nintex RPA. It's a tool that we released about 2 months ago. It's called Nintex Gateway. And that allows you to talk from cloud to on-prem services. And so now your workflows can kick off your bot flows that are running on your environment, behind your firewall, all those wonderful things. So again, taking the process fully end to end cloud, on-prem, everything that you can hope and dream for. And then I always like to kind of touch on the advanced stuff because I feel like this is like our catch-all, right? Where, again, it's running locally. This is something that it's going to be a local installation application. So I can run things like my command line prompts, PowerShell if I needed to, SOAP actions, REST calls, things of that nature. So I can really start to build out some extra functionality that RPA can interact with. It's not just copying and pasting data, right? I know that's a simple example. That's probably the easiest one to do in a short amount of time to really understand what it's capable of and it's powerful with. But at the same time, I can grab images, I can take screenshots, I can add that to files, I can send emails, I can check inboxes and wait for something to come in, things like that. We can work with green screen emulators, so legacy applications, APIs, all that stuff. RPA can do just about anything you tell it to, because at the end of the day, it's just like one of your workers. If you as an individual, as a user can do it, you can train the bot to do the exact same thing. So with that, I want to make sure that we hand it back to Mark to wrap up the rest of the content that he has, and kind of go from there. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask away, put them in chat, or wait to the end, and we'll field any questions at that point.
Okay, Jess, I think you need to make me the host again.
Yeah, I'm trying to find in the list. Got it. Yes, there we go.
All right. Okay, so I know we were looking at a little bit granular of a level here around the, oh, hold on. Get some folks that join late, I guess. So the different pieces that Jesse was speaking about, we had bot flows where we build the bot and then we run the bot, and then the RPA Central coordinates all those bots. So that would be the pieces that Jesse was speaking about that you have installed locally in your environment. And as we talked about, we want to focus on what it is that we want to accomplish. So Jesse actually talked about two different products, RPA and workflow. And when you think about it, again, two different products for Nintex, but again, what is it that you're trying to do? If you're talking about high volume, repetitive work, that is, RPA. If you have a lot of decisions and things that need to go out and wait for responses, that's more your workflow. More linear versus variable, execution of a specific task for RPA versus the automation of a true end-to-end process. If you're working with primarily legacy and desktop apps, you would use more RPA. If you're working with a lot of cloud stuff and stuff that you developed on your own or hybrids, it'd be workflow. And when you're looking for that quick hits, that's where you use the RPA. And then ultimately, if you're looking for that true end-to-end process automation, you'd be looking more from the workflow perspective. So again, you saw the capability of the Nintex product to that kind of that drag and drop. You saw the capability that Jesse showed was the smart targeting, where you can use the bullseye to go out and select the area that you're in the other application that you're trying to look at. Again, very unique, and makes it very simple for somebody who may not be a technical person. I know, again, some of the other applications that I've had to work with, RPA applications I've had to work with in the past, you had to know things like screen addresses and all that other stuff to make it work. Again, the goal that as we work with our clients is to make sure that it's easy to develop these things, in hours and days versus, weeks and weeks of development work. I think we were talking about this, and, for the most part, you can really develop bots in a matter of hours. And, the complexity normally comes in the testing and of the capabilities across the different technical environments. So again, we're convinced that the Nintex RPA product is superior than other things that are out there. Really easy to work with, low cost to learn how to use, and very fast time to value. And then the last piece here is from a Tactegra perspective. We've seen that a lot of organizations are doing robotic process automation as part of their digital transformation. And we have this is our digital transformation model that we use with clients to work across these different spaces. As Jesse showed, a lot of times it definitely has to do with data. And ultimately, what are you trying to do? You're trying to analyze that data to improve your customer experience, better serve your customers, and be more efficient and effective. So at that point, I'll go ahead and open up the floor to questions. Does anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts? Let me check the chat.
Hey, Mark, this is Ian. On the ProMap side, how do you actually, when you have the library of processes that are resident in ProMap, how do you share those things, and how do you look at your library? Is it interactive? Can you go in and do a number of things? Like, for example, if you store processes today on a SharePoint site, there's limited interactive capability. What's the depth and breadth of the interactive capability on ProMap as you go from one process stream to another process stream to another, and just looking at your portfolio of processes?
Yeah. So, and maybe Jesse, I can toss it back over to you, and you could show that that broader view. But when you think about it, as Jesse mentioned, it's role based. So, again, there's some flexibility in terms of how you set it up. The way I would describe it is it's like a library. So when you go in there, you have, if you have access to those processes, you have the ability to go in and share that. As you notice, there are, the ability for people to comment or give feedback against those processes as well. There's also the capability, the tool also has the capability, for example, if there are regional differences, you may share out the regional difference with a specific region. So it's all, that is all controlled by the administrators. I don't know, Ian, if that answered the specific question, but I think Jesse could probably show us the screen view of that.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you want to throw me the rights to share it, I can kind of show something here real quick. So you have the ability to, inside an Nintex ProMap, screen two. So you can look at all of your processes from kind of the grouping approach is what we call it, so process groups. And what this allows you to do is kind of build out like your own buckets of different processes and things like that. So a lot of organizations that we see and interact with, they kind of take that departmental approach of, IT, finance, things like that. But like cross-functional work groups, that fits as well. Maybe social projects, whatever makes sense for you and your organization, that's how you can build that out. Now, in terms of like the different roles and the users and things like that, Your interactivity with a given process is based on your role in that process. So for example, like if I am not the owner or the expert of a given process, I'm not going to be able to do anything with that process. But I'm the owner and expert of this, so I can do everything with that. Now, the individual user that's just coming in and saying, hey, how do I do an internal review? They're not going to be able to change and edit and things like that.
We just opened it. How are
What
you
was that?
feeling about the dogs, and why are you off the phone so early?
It is just somebody's mic is on.
Sure. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So so the individual users can still come in here and consume the process and look at it. Their interaction would be around providing feedback and things like that. To be able to go off and do that. Now, sharing this out, you mentioned SharePoint. There's actually tools inside of Nintex ProMap where you can integrate this with SharePoint Search. So you can actually leverage SharePoint Search to search your processes inside of ProMap, as well as build web parts to showcase some of the processes inside of SharePoint as well, if you wanted to. Other than that, you can also then share this out via a your mini mode link that you have here. This is a permalink. So if I come in here, let's just go into incognito. So that way there I'm not logged in. Apparently I did not copy this out. There we go. There. So when I open this up and I'm not logged in, you'll see automatically like all of this is gone, right? That feedback tab, all that stuff, because now I'm not logged in. I'm an external user. I can still see it. I can still interact with it, but I'm very limited on what I can actually do in regards to changing the process. The only thing I can do is provide that feedback here. So that's kind of how we encourage people to interact with it, how you can share it out either internally or externally, and to get kind of that adoption, that feedback, that growth over time, that collaboration, right? Really driving that, always moving forward.
Thank you, Jesse. I think that gets after what I was looking at. And the other piece that I saw, which was interesting, is your change log. For process features, that's such an important variable, because so often a process would change, and the process that's sitting in the document library is the old process. Mm-hmm. And there is no, the revision piece of how you keep a process alive and well is missing. So I see the change log, which is awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other call out to that, right, that change log is you can always go back and restore whenever versions actually get changed, right, to major versions. And also too, you see like that cycle cost, that change over time. Mm-hmm. So, over time, hopefully you're streamlining processes, you're saving money, or if it's going the other way, you're spending more time, spending more money. Why is that, right? At least now, like you said, it's being logged somewhere. Now you can have that conversation because you have the foundation to go off and actually perform that conversation. Yeah.
Hey, Jesse.
Good questions. Yeah.
This is David. Hey, to echo what Ian was saying, assume that there was a change made in this process, mm-hmm. provided it was, I'm a manager, as an example. Would mm-hmm. that be an automated notification of that process change? Or
yes.
Can it be?
Yeah, so when the changes happen, the owner and the expert, as well as your pro master, which is kind of the overall admin, you can have multiples of those would get notifications, awesome. As well as if you have like specifically named people inside of here as like your stakeholders and things like that need to be mm-hmm. notified. Other than that, it usually just boils down to the owner and expert. Mm-hmm. Because again, then you get into that realm of, do we need to notify every single person every single time that any little change happens? Or do we just need to notify those that are actually, intimate with the process, and then just, you kind of roll it out, you disseminate it out, via other means. So mm-hmm. yep, we can do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we have any other questions or comments for today's webinar?
This is Izzy. I have one question. RPA, once I create a bot, can triggers be created so it runs automatically, for example, once a day or in the morning, or do you need an outside trigger to get the bot to run?
Let me share out my screen one more time. So you can create jobs inside of Nintex RPA Central. Like Mark was saying, that's kind of the piece that kind of glues that all together, right? This is where you're going to be kind of your central administration portal, kind of like in SharePoint, your central admin. This is where you create jobs, and then you associate the specific bot flows to them, the script that you're building, and what triggers that. Could it just be it runs every now and then on a schedule, on some sort of cadence, things like that? Or is there something else that needs to trigger that? You can also, too, like I mentioned, you can have Nintex Workflow Cloud be that trigger as well. So then you can have a workflow, that process, trigger that as well. You can do things like that. So kind of your RPA Central manages all of that, everything from your licensing to your users and even the individual machines that have access to run those inside of your environment.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I have one. I'm sorry. From RPA to workflow, when we looked at the differences, if you will, that Mark walked through, would you say that would you position workflow as a continual optimization of your RPA segment as you continue to automate end to end?
I don't know, Mark, if you have any thoughts on that.
I mean, I think the way I would view it is the RPA tends to focus on the process blocks. So you may end up automating a process block. When you start looking to go more end to end across multiple process blocks, that's where you would get into the workflow. So I think the answer to that question is yes. I mean, you would, you may find, for example, I know in past lives, what I find unique about Nintex is they segment out the workflow and the RPA. In past lives, I've seen where they just call it RPA. Yeah. So I think the answer to that question is yes. If you end up, you get to a point where, okay, I can only optimize a block so much because of the inputs and the outputs I'm relying on other people. Then you have to say, okay, now I need to go more across, which means then you would leverage the capability potentially of the workflow. Not to say, like Jesse said, there's different ways to skin the cat, right? You could run bots, but when you start ensuring that you want to have a human decision maker in the flow, that's where you would go. That's what the workflow tool really excels at.
Awesome. So that gets after my question, because it puts process on a continuum of optimization versus a one and done type deal, right? So you do the bot, you use the bot to kind of automate or optimize one piece of the process, but then you use the workflow to try to automate larger chunks of the process, if you will, as an continuous optimization.
Yeah,
processes change over time.
Yeah, I did a project one time where they did exactly that. They had a flow going across multiple ones, and they had the individual blocks, if you will, automated. And they were like, well, this is kind of useless because why should I automate the individual blocks? And what we found out was when we ran the numbers, the RPA, the robot, the bot doesn't get it wrong, doesn't get the data wrong. There's no fat fingering. There's no, even cutting and pasting data from a screen scrape, you stand a lot better chance of getting accurate data. So they were like, well, we're not going to automate it. We'll automate the end-to-end piece and not worry about the middle piece. Because to Izzy's earlier question, it was a matter of like scheduling the bots. And when we did the study, it turned out that from a data accuracy perspective, the numbers were way up when the bot was doing the work. So they ran the bots like every day, and then once a week they they called it flushing, but basically they would run the whole automation across everything.
Good. Well, look, thank you. That was enlightening, to see the tool at work. Thank you.
All right. So if we don't have any other questions, again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. And we look forward to more of these in the future, different subjects and some case studies as well. So thank you for your attendance, and everybody have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.